folks, and welcome to this week's show. As you can see, we're back to the Fab Four again. We've got Pete, Jeremy, and Peter, and and we're going to be focusing on Killing Joke. A little bit different today because I'm not actually participating. I'm just going to be the genial host, the hostess with the leastest, and I'm basically the other three are experts on the band, and they're going to rank their albums from 15 to 1 and give us reasons why. Before we start, as usual, we're going to sort of discuss how we got into the band. So, Pete, do you want to sort of tell us how you got into Killing Joke and any little bit of info?
Wow. The first time I became aware of Killing Joke was on the local Metro, Sid. So like a local underground in Newcastle, and I was going home from school, and I saw a kid who had a haversack. And back in the day, people used to paint the sort of one end of the bag with an album cover, and I saw the first album cover, and I was just really intrigued. And they had the font Killing Joke on it, and I was just really intrigued by it. And then the first track I heard was The Wait, and it just like knocked my socks off, to be honest. I was so intrigued. And then the second one I heard was Tomorrow's World, and I was like even further sort of like weirded out by the complete change in pace. But the tone of the guitar just had me hooked. That's it.
And you've toured around with them as well, haven't you?
Yeah, a fair bit. Wasted far too much money.
Jeremy, how about yourself then?
I have a little bit of a checkered past when it comes to Killing Joke, because my first memory of them was rehearsing with my band, my high school band called the Young Aborigines. And it was myself, Mike Diamond, who became Mike D, and John Barry, who was in the earliest part of the Beastie Boys too. But this was before the Beastie Boys. So it was the three of us. And we used to like to make fun of other musicians because we were such poor musicians ourselves that we lifted ourselves up by ragging on things. And I remember one band we made fun of was Killing Joke. The only song, I don't even know if I had heard it, but they had heard the song Change. And they thought it was a very lame attempt at funk. And it is based on War's Me and Baby Brother slightly. So I just went along with it and thought, oh, this is just a joke of a band, Killing Joke. What the heck is that? Then I went to college and I was introduced to a guy called Andy Bereni. Andy Bereni was a rock star born and bred, never quite got there. He was in a band called Underneath What later on that actually had a little popularity in England and Japan. But he was the one who started, when I joined his band, he started drumming Killing Joke into my mind and playing me songs. And I was just like, this stuff is incredible. This stuff is so good. Mike and John were completely wrong. So I became a huge fan and actually went even further than he did. There was a certain point, he sort of liked the first 3 albums or so, 4 albums, but I went all the way and went all through the ups and downs with them and got to see them live 3 times, one of the greatest live bands I've ever seen. And I still can't quite believe it's all over with the death of Gordy Walker.
Yeah.
They really are one of my favorite bands at this point.
Peter, how about yourself then?
A friend at school, the same friend that gave me a tape of Kiss in the Dream House, the Banshees. Gave me a tape of Fire Dances. And I actually think it might have been on the other side to Kiss in the Dream House. Can't remember, but yeah. A good mate at school who was a bit older than me and was probably responsible for quite a lot of, my music collection, really. And also he had the poster of the first album cover. And it's such an iconic image that, like Pete, I was just drawn to this image. Like, what the hell is going on there? It's sinister. And I remember listening to Fire Dances quite a lot, and it was pretty out of my realm of stuff that I usually listen to. But I fell for it pretty quickly, and rest is history.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, folks. Well, what we're going to do today, we're going to, because there's 15 albums, we don't want to be here all year. We're going to literally do 15, 14, 13 together. And then later on, we'll be doing 12 and 11, according to my maths, or math, as the Americans call it. And we will just give a quick line or so about each album. They may well crop up with each other's lists anyways. I'm pretty sure they will. But before we do that, just a reminder in terms of the ranking. Now, as you can see on the screen, in terms of our rankings, we do 5 stars, and 5 stars is a masterpiece. 4.5 is essential. 4 is excellent. 3.5 is very good. 3 is good. 2.5 is fair. 2 is weak. 1.5 is very poor. 1's awful, and 0.5, which I'm sure won't happen, is don't bother. So we're going to start with Pete at the bottom. So Pete, what have you got in at number 15? Well, 15,
outside
14.
outside the gate at 15, 14 2012 album, and then 13 Hosannas.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about them then? Why have you got them there as well?
Well, outside the gate is Pap and probably warrants 0.5. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it wasn't really supposed to be a Killing Joke record. It was a jazz solo project, and it led to the dissolution of the band, really. I remember when it was released, they were kind of splintered, and I remember Raven saying it was a bit like a schoolboy essay from Jazz Coleman, what he had done on his summer holidays in the Andes. It's just, I mean, it's got jazz rapping on it. Sorry, but it's just pure shit. 2000, the 2012 album was just a bit of a surprise to me. I wasn't even aware they were recording, and I don't go to it that much apart from like a couple of really good tracks like Cobra Elect. But what like gets me about this album, like 2 of the best songs from those sessions aren't on the album, like Penny Drops and New Uprising. New Uprising is the best song from that whole recording, and it's not on the frigging album. Absolutely dumbass. Hosannas, they were going through another sort of period of breakup again. Raven left. I thought the album was fairly mixed with some sort of leaden tracks on it, but there's some absolute brilliant stuff on there as well, like Judas Goat and Gratitude, or just phenomenal songs, especially Judas Goat. It's like, I think it's the closest Geordie got sounding similar to Revelations kind of stuff. So that's
how many
my
stars are we going there, Pete?
So outside the gate, give it 1, because you should listen to it to realize how bad it is. And I'd give Hosannas and 2012 both 3s or maybe 4s a bit.
Right.
You know.
Oh, you can tell he's a super fan. Right, Jeremy, how about yourself then? 15, 14, 13.
Well, no surprise here. Outside the gate is also my 15. I gave it 1.5 stars. That's probably generous. The best song on there is Obsession, and it's basically a pale retread of A Brighter Than a Thousand Suns sound. The song I like the most from that period is Jihad, but it's a B-side. It's not on the album. I just remember buying the 12-inch for America, I guess was the lead single, and just my face probably looked like what it was. It's just terrible. It's under any name, it's bad. That's the thing. Like you could say, oh, well, Jazz Coleman, he's in Killing Joke. It's just, it offends my ears. It's that bad. Number 14, I had Democracy at 3.5 stars. I think it's a good album, but it kind of retreads the album that came before it, Pandemonium. So it's sort of like a lot of the similar textures, but the songs aren't as strong. Eon is a great song on there. And then 13, I had Hosannas, 3.5 stars. The thing about it is that there's a lot of energy in there. It's a very powerful album, but the songs seem to stay on the surface. They kind of sketch by and they don't really dig in. Invocation is amazing, though. That to me is the sequel to Kashmir. And we know that Page and Killing Joke have a relationship, at least as mutual fans. And when I hear Invocation, that's to me is like Kashmir in IMAX. It's just massive. And the Egyptian percussion is fantastic. Walking with Gods is also a cool song. it does what it says on the tin. When you listen to it in your headphones, you feel like you're walking with gods. How much better can you get than that? Gratitude, Afterburner, some good songs in there, but also the sound can be a little murky. But yeah, so that's my number 13.
Excellent. So, Pete, what have you got at 15, 14, and 13?
Right, well, it won't surprise you to know at 15, it's Drum Roll Outside the Gate. Yeah, nothing much to say about it that hasn't already been said. It's pretty awful. I quite like My Love of This Land. Sort of. 1 star. Number 14, this one might
That's
be
$6.49. I'll never get back.
Number 14, I've got Brighter Than a Thousand Suns. Just wasn't for me. Yeah, give it 2 stars. And 13, I've got Extremities, Dirt, and Various Repressed Emotions. Again, it's just also wasn't for me. Nothing on there that really dragged me in at all, in particular. There are tracks on it that I did connect with, but nothing that really lit me up, and nothing that I can remember even now. So, yep, that's me.
Okay, all right, that's okay. Right, now then, Pete, what have you got in it? 12 and 11.
Oh, Jesus. I've got Absolute Descent at 12 and Democracy at 11.
So go on and talk us through them very briefly then.
To be honest, I'm really struggling with this because I love everything else. And but Absolute Descent, I mean, the Great Cull, I mean, one of the all-time great Killing Joke tracks. But it's, to me, it's almost like a bit like a compilation album. I mean, it sounds like a roll-up of everything Killing Joke from all of the different sort of tacks they took. But I think The Great Cull just stands out as a monster track there. Democracy, Absent Friends, I just absolutely love. One of my favorite all-time tracks. And I also like Savage Freedom as well, and the title track. Very discordant and very lush. But I don't see them as having too much in common with Pandemonium, but I do think the recording is not as strong as Pandemonium. But so that's my 12 and 11.
So how many stars did you give them then?
I'll both get 5. Everything else is like 5. Everything is 5 until I get to number 1, which is like 10,000. Sorry.
Right, Pete's already there. It's unheralded at this early stage. I might do so when we get a David Bowie, but that's another day. Jeremy, what have you got in at 12 and 11?
At 12, I had Fire Dances, 3.5 stars. I love this album to death, but when I listen to it just objectively for this purpose, you can hear every song is kind of structured the same. They sort of set a template and they stick to it. I think there are several strong songs on it, especially Feast of Blaze is incredible. Dominator is one of my all-time favorite Killing Joke songs. I love like the 12-inch version. I'll take any version of that. It's such a cool groove. And it's got that little synth lick in there that it sort of drives you a little crazy. You have to hear it, you know? They had hooks. And Let's All Go is obviously just an unbelievable song. And there's nothing bad about the album, but I just feel like they kind of settled in a way. Very exciting album, though, in many ways. And actually seeing their faces, that was the first time they showed their faces on an album, even though it was kind of distorted. So there was this whole mystery behind them not showing their faces on the first 3 albums. And then at 11, I have Extremities, Dirt, and Various Repressed Emotions. I give it 4 stars. That's an album that I did not discover till way later, because after Outside the Gate came out, that was 88, and this one is 90. After Outside the Gate, I kind of gave up. I barely paid attention. And the title also sort of said, that doesn't sound like a Killing Joke title, like Extremities, Dirt, Repressed Emotions. Yeah. So but then there was a CD reissue of it that came out in 2007. And I guess I heard Money Is Not Our God. I was like, what is wrong with me? This has got to be a good album. That's the first song on it. So I got this box set. Is fantastic. It's got B-sides and video and a whole booklet. It's a really good album. The bass playing is superb. And you can definitely hear echoes of Fire Dances in Nighttime. So they're calling back to some classic era stuff, but they're also, you can feel the 90s. They're kind of grasping at the 90s. You can hear what's coming. And I think a lot of times with Killing Joke's best work, they predict what's coming. And you can hear this kind of a little bit of the grunge sound that might even be coming. You know, you might even hear a little bit of that. Money Is Not Our God is obviously standout track. Slipstream, Beautiful Dead, Kali Yuga. I like the whole album though. I think it's really cool sound.
Well, we're doing amazing. 4 stars and 5 stars already. It's mental. Right, Peter, what about yourself then?
Number 12, I've got Revelations. Again, it was, I mean, there's a lot about it that I do love. The panties are coming. I remember seeing Chop Chop on Top of the Pops when Jazz didn't even turn up. You know, you know, the Hum Empire song. There's so much good stuff on there, but it just worked its way. It just got knocked down the list for other things. I just going on Play Count. Really, I had to go on Play Count. Yeah.
How many stars, Peter?
Oh, sorry, I was giving it 4.
Right.
So yeah,
wow,
I'm already.
I tell you what, this is the highest ranking set of albums that we've ever done so far. Go on then.
I'm already at my 4. So yeah, and then 11, I've got What's This For? Again, 4 stars. But I came in at Fire Dances, and then I got the first album, and then I got, you know, What's This For and Revelations, and just because Fire Dances had all of my love, because it was the first Killing Joke I heard, and then the first album, those other two, in the way that I was listening to things, they just got lost. And in a few years' time, this list might revise itself, you know. I mean, I have been listening to those albums for a long time, but they just haven't gone into my heart. That's purely what it is. You know, again, What's This For is a 4-star album. And probably even a bloody 5-star album, but yeah, when you look at the track list, it's like, oh my God, it's perfect. But as I say, I'm going on emotions and where I was in my head at the time, you know, and the way I was listening. That's where it's coming in. That's me.
Great stuff. Excellent. Right then. So good. I can't believe how high we are already. Right, Pete, what have you got in at 10? We're into the big 10 now.
I've got Fire Dancers at number 10. Some of my favourite songs on there, Frenzy, Feast of Blaze. Frenzy's got some of my sort of most favourite lyrics. It just makes my blood boil. It's just, I don't know, it just, like when Killing Joke are on the top of their game, it just moves you so much, like physically. It's like it courses through your veins. I mean, the other guys will know this. I think the production is a bit muddy at times, but live those songs were absolutely like sledgehammers. The only thing I would say is like I wish they'd put Willful Days on it, because that's one of my favorite all-time tracks. That just scuzzy bass at the beginning, those drums, and then when Geordie kicks in, it's just like just takes you somewhere else, man. It's just class.
They have a lot of good non-LP stuff in general. I mean, when you think about Birds of a Feather, what a great song that is.
I find it a little bit annoying. I don't know what them like, how they resolve these things. You know, I heard, like, I mean, when I discussed my number 9, I heard at the time that there was a really big battle, a fight over what was going to be the single from that album, and Geordie
Well,
didn't get what he wanted, which was a shame.
Okay,
and
It's like
Mark.
what Bob Dylan said. Mark Knopfler said, "Why did you leave Blind Willie McTell off of whatever album it was?" And Dylan just looked at him and said, "It's just another album. I've done 30 of them." So anyway, but
Go on, Jeremy. What have you got at 10?
my number 10 is 2012. I give it 4 stars. And I feel like sometimes their albums come in pairs. And that's the case here, where I feel it followed Absolute Descent 2 years later. And I feel it's just not quite as memorable and carefully crafted. There's a lot of really great electronic textures on it. So maybe that outside the gate work finally paid off a little bit here, because the electronic textures are incredible. I also love that if you look in the booklet, there's footnotes to most of the songs. It's hilarious. So they have a song called FEMA Camp, which, I mean, the lyrics are genius. He says here, "It's a time of unrest and your rights are suspended. There's a list going around and it's likely you're on it. The names on the blue list are picked up later and the red list goes in the incinerator." And then at the end, it says HTTP OccupyWallStreet.org. And it's sort of, I love how engaged they were with the culture of the time. They weren't just, "Oh, we're just gonna, talk about the same things we've always talked about, the threat of nuclear war and this and that." But when they made the first album, that was very present. In 2012, it was a different time. Other things, there were other concerns, and they were fully engaged. I can only imagine how many tabs Jazz Coleman has open on his browser, and just the rabbit holes he must be going down. It must be incredible. And then he distills it into these just very concise, pithy lyrics. It's a great album. Just slightly less memorable than the one that came before. So that's my number 10 with 4 stars.
Great stuff. Peter, what's your number 10?
My number 10 is Nighttime. A sensational album, gave us the iconic Love Like Blood, which, is one of the all-time greatest songs ever written for me.
I think it's the top 10 songs of the 1980s for me. I think it's an
Yeah.
incredible song.
Yeah, it's up there with Love Will Tear Us Apart, etc., etc. But also, it suffers from that being completely overplayed. I listened to this album to death when it came out, but I don't listen to it much anymore. It hasn't lasted for me the test of time. But as I say, there is so much on it that pretty much every track on it is a corker. I'm not so keen on 80s, but things like Darkness Before Dawn in Europe, incredible. And yeah, I've given it 4 stars.
Yeah, good. All right, so we're in excellent territory there now. Honestly, I'm shocked. I think it's only Roxy Music for me, and they only did 8 albums, which started off at 4 stars, and that was it. Right, Peter, what have you got? Oh, Pete, sorry, what have you got in at number 9?
I've got the 2003 Comeback. Did you get that?
Yes.
I was looking forward to this so much, and as good fortune would have it, my best friend's sister's best friend was working for the management company, and I was living in China at the time. This young lady who worked at the management company made arrangements for me to meet the band in Amsterdam, but cross wires. I let that not to happen, but I did end up meeting them there, and had drinks with Jazz and Geordie, bumped into Raven at breakfast one morning. Then in the Camden gig, in the rather small gig in the Camden Underground, it was just fucking amazing. There's one abiding memory I have of Killing Joke with. They hadn't done anything for a long time, right, since like '96. And just before they went on, Diamond Dave, Geordie's roadie, held up the guitar and did one last check, and the whole place just erupted. Like, just to hear the tone of that golden harp, it's absolutely fucking magic. And anyway, I was backstage, met them and all this kind of stuff, laughing with Jazz, Jody Raven, and Ted Parsons, who was an absolute gent. But album though was a bit of a difficult one for me in terms of like meeting expectations. It took me a while, apart from like the opening track blew me away, and Blood on Your Hands as well just blew me away. Dark Forces. And it's this one that I heard that Jody wanted Blood on Your Hands to be the single, not Loose Cannon. And I have to totally agree with him. Blood on Your Hands is just monstrous, just like absolutely full of fury. And that his guitar work is just unsurpassed when he plays like that. Some of the more hardcore stuff on it, I have a little bit of a struggle with still. So that's my take on it. But it brings back lots of good memories.
Yeah, nice little anecdote there, Peter. Impressed with that. That's very impressive. Jeremy, what have you got at number 9?
Number 9, I have Revelations, album 3. You can see I bought it as a cutout, $3.99. It was remaindered. What a ridiculous thing that is. Can you imagine? The thing about Revelations, the sound is so weird when you think about it. This is the one they made it in Germany with Connie Plank, who was known for working with the krautrock bands mostly. And the sound is very weird. Just the drums are just kind of very tight sounding, but it still manages to rock really hard. And there's this kind of rumble to it. I love how a lot of the songs start out kind of quiet, and then the drums just come. A really fantastic record. Also, when you think about how many production details they put in there, little vocals, side melodies, or guitar licks that become hooks that really are brilliantly constructed. I love the hum, Empire Song, We Have Joy, Panties Are Coming is incredible. I think my secret favorite deep cut from it is chapter 3, just attack behind attack, war behind a war. Just the lyrics are so telegraphic. Wise thoughts to broad horizons. It's just the way he can put those words together. And then when it comes in the very lead, it's just incredible. And then there's that last song, Dregs, which is just mysterious in so many ways. That I remember we used to listen to that, myself and Andy Bereni, the guitar player in the band, my college band. And just how do you even arrive at that space and time to do that kind of thing? It's a great record. I give it 4 stars. I think it's just the kind of odd sound, and there's also, it's got a little bit of that Fire Dance's repetitive structure, where the songs are kind of very, very similarly structured, each one. So yeah, so maybe a little bit harsh for that, but great record. It's my number 9 with 4 stars, Revelations.
Interesting. Peter, what have you got at number 9?
I've got Democracy. Again, fantastic album. I do think someone else said it, that it does sound a bit like its predecessor. It feels it's not as strong as its predecessor. It feels a little bit weak, and that's maybe why it comes in there. I mean, it's a good 4 stars for me. And there's a lot on it that I love. Lanterns being my absolute favorite. Belter of a song, and then weird things like Pilgrimage, really love. So yeah, it's a great album. But yeah, just slightly shift down because the one before it was very dear to me. So yeah, there you go, number 9.
Good stuff, Peter. Pete, what have you got at number 8?
I've got oh dear me, I've got Nighttime at number 8. I mean, as Peter said, Love Like Blood is overplayed. I can't listen to it anymore. If I listen to anything from that album, it will be things like Nighttime, Darkness Before Dawn, Europe, Multitudes, things like that. I love them all, but I just can't go and listen to Love Like Blood anymore. Just heard it too many times. I mean, but there's a real heavy vibe in the middle of that song, which I really, really love. where he just drops in something, and the atmosphere in that song kind of changes. It becomes quite intense. But that's my number 8.
Okay, interesting, Jeremy.
My number 8 is Pandemonium. I give it 4.5 stars. Wild that they had been away from my life for several years at that point, because I did not buy Outside the Gate based on the terrible single. And before that was 85. Well, Nighttime was 85. So I sort of thought they weren't really a going concern. And then this came up in my BMG Club or Columbia House catalog. I was like, Killing Joke, for $3.99 or $2.99, you can save a lot of money with those clubs. I figured I'd give it a shot. And then I was like, holy cow, they've gone ahead and made a classic rock record. It sounds like it could fit into rock radio in America at that time. And I think it set a standard in many ways for metal. Once again, the Led Zeppelin connection, it could almost be a companion album to No Quarter, the way they incorporate the Egyptian percussion. And it's actually the same guy, Hassam Ramzi, who plays percussion on both records. The first 3 songs, Pandemonium, Exorcism, and Millennium, it's unstoppable. You're like, how can they just pound away like that? And the way they get those choruses, they're so anthemic. And I also love in Pandemonium, is that a blues lick? It almost sounds like, it's almost like it's like a blues / Egyptian thing that Gordy's doing on that. And you're just sort of like, oh my God, it's like rock and roll. And I think they kind of want to do that. There's also acoustic textures on it. I think that's something that Gordy brought in very late in the game. This is a mid-period album, but I think he played a 12-string, and he would combine that with his golden harp. So the textures are just gorgeous. Really a great album. A lot of times when bands try to fit themselves into a little more of a conventional box genre-wise, it does not go well. And I don't know if that was an intention behind them. I don't know if they wanted to have more success, or if they were just taking in these different influences and expressing them this way. But it totally works as a 90s hard rock metal album that also happens to have everything that makes Killing Joke great.
Interesting.
So that's 4.5 stars.
Yeah, the pronunciation in the UK is Geordie.
Oh, Geordie, sorry.
As Pete and I are both Geordies. Peter?
I didn't even know it was a nickname for many years.
It's part of the UK. It's where you're from Newcastle, you're known as a Geordie. Peter?
Number 8. Are we on number 8? Sorry, I've lost myself. Here we are, number 8, aren't we? I have got Pylon. Incredible album. Sad that it's probably, it's the last. I remember when the single came out, I Am the Virus, I was like, that's really, I think maybe that set my expectations very high, and the album didn't really fulfill that. But actually, that's, when I look at the track listing, that's not really true, because it is it's 4 stars from me, and there's Autonomous Zone, Dawn of the Hive, Apotheosis, Plague, Star Spangled. I've just, many absolute belters on there. There's not that much weak stuff on it. So it absolutely is worth every one of those 4 stars. Actually, sorry, do you know what? I'm going 4.5.
Oh, we're up. Like the Grand Old Duke of York, we've gone up. No marching down now.
Yep, 4.5.
Excellent, good stuff, Peter. Pete, what have you got in at number 7?
I'm 7. I've got Pylon. I agree with everything that Peter said. I love Euphoria to death and Panopticon. I just think just brilliant. I'd like to add, just what Peter said though. Around the end of that tour in the UK, both Geordie and Youth wanted to go straight in the studio, but Jazz and Big Paul had they needed a break, and I know that lots of the sound checks, Geordie was playing with new riffs. And there's a couple of things you can maybe see on YouTube, and that a great sense of what was to come. Just really, really sad. Geordie's not with us to sort of play that stuff, but I thought it was a monumentally great album. I love it. I love Delete and things like that as well. Yeah, fantastic album.
Excellent. Jeremy, what have you got at number 8?
Number 7 now, actually.
7, sorry, I beg your
Yep.
pardon.
Number 7, I have Absolute Descent. I got the deluxe copy that has a whole disc of cover versions. Some of those are pretty great, but the main album is really just incredible. Once again, the anthemic energy, especially on the first few tracks, they just go on fire. But they also tone down the dynamics a little bit on this album. They have the Raven King and Honor of the Fire, both beautiful songs. Obviously, the Raven King in honor of Paul Raven, just a member of the tribe gone far too soon, who, he lifted them up when Youth dissipated, and they needed a new bass player. He was really great, and I think they paid tribute to him in a mighty way on that song. Honor of the Fire is also great. And I also like bands that create their own myth, and they've always done that. And the fact that they could credibly do it that late in their career. So we're talking about, this is 2010. So it's 30 years after their debut album. There's just no other band except for maybe Wire that can claim to be as good as they were 30 years later. I feel like the Ghosts of Ladbroke Grove, they also cast back a bit to the dub reggae stuff they did earlier in their career. We know Youth is a huge fan of that. He did a whole 3 CD Killing Joke and dub set that's actually 75% amazing. So I think he's a great producer, and hearing them put that to a song, it's very atmospheric, excellent album. Yeah. So that's my number 7, Absolute Descent, with 4.5 stars.
Excellent, Jeremy. Well done. Good stuff. Peter, what have you got at number 7?
Just before I reveal, I just want to say that the in-dub thing that Youth did, I'm going to say 100% excellent. Absolutely love that.
He's a talented man.
Number 7 for me is the 2003 Killing Joke. Sensational album. The only thing for me is, the only track on it I don't like is Loose Cannon. It's just like, I don't get it. When it came out as a single, I was like, oh, all right, yeah, marvelous. And then listened to it and I was like, what? No, this isn't, wasn't. But then fortunately, once I got my grubby little mitts on the album, I'm like, hell's teeth, this is incredible. It's straight Death and Resurrection Show, what a way to open it. Blood on Your Hands. Oh yeah, that's definitely should have been the single. House That Pain Built, just so many great ones on it. Fantastic. 4.5 stars.
All right, good stuff, Peter. Pete, what have you got at number 6?
I've got Brighter Than a Thousand Suns at number 6. This is a quite sort of controversial Killing Joke album. You either love this one or you hate it, but it perhaps was a bit of a sign of things to come in terms of proceeding outside the gate. There's a couple of tracks on there that I struggle with, but songs like Winter Gardens, Twilight of the Immortals, what else? Rubicon, just like class, and the sort of later re-release with sort of like the original mixes on, it's just far superior than what was released in 1986. Love of the Masses as well. What a song! What a bass groove on that by Raven. I think Jazz really likes that album with Hindsight. I think I've heard him talk about the melancholy on that album. He finds it quite lovely, and I know Big Paul regrets not being able to go back and play that stuff as well. I've heard him talk about that. But it sort of invokes a lot of mixed and quite feisty reactions. That album. That's my take on it.
Okay, look forward to checking it out. Jeremy, what have you got at number 6?
Same, Brighter Than a Thousand Suns. And I will say that it was a little bit of a shock, although it does pick up from the previous album, Nighttime, in a way, but it goes deeper into this very glossy, almost impenetrable sound. So it did take a little while for me to penetrate that, to get into the detail and the sort of majestic thing they were doing. It's an imperious sounding album in so many ways. And when you think, they do have this, there's this kind of theme, chessboards, Love of the Masses, and then there's a non-LP B-side called Goodbye to the Village. So there's this kind of medieval 80s thing going on that's, I think, is very cool. Also, we got to see their faces close up, and I think I saw them live on this tour. It was either this tour or the Nighttime tour, but it was so hard to just get your mind about what they looked like and who they were. But then this album came out, I was like, okay, now we know exactly what they look like. Very close.
I remember having the art display of that on my wall in the shop. So somebody came up and put the big art display up of it at the time. Yeah, so
beautiful portraits. I actually, because I listened to it so much, because I was dedicated to getting it, that I don't really bother with the remastered version. It's fine. I get it in a way, but it's sort of like with the Replacements, the latest reissue that came out, where they're like, this is what it was always supposed to sound like. I was like, no, it was supposed to sound like how they released it, and it's fine. So I sort of feel like it's just a great album. Maybe if I got the remix on CD or vinyl, didn't just breeze through it on Spotify, I would understand it a little better, why that makes people happy. But if it gets them into the songs, then I'm all for it. It's 4.5 stars. That's my number 6.
Excellent. Well, we're close. We're close. What have you got at number 6, Peter?
Number 6, I have got Hosannas from the Basement of Hell. God, I love that album. I mean, it's just, from the minute I saw the poster somewhere around Camden in London. I remember seeing the poster and didn't know at the time it was a Killing Joke poster. I just saw that freakish painting. I was like, oh my God, what on earth is that? And there's of course it's Killing Joke. Fantastic. Absolutely love it. I mean, it's so heavy, so dark, so intense, insane. You can hear the wheels coming off. Well, personally for me, I can hear them coming apart. It's just, it really is fueled by some immensely dark stuff going on there, and nothing more than summed up in Judas Goat. It's just absolute mad. Although my favorite track on it is Hosannas from Basement of Hell. It's just twisted immensely in a catalogue of pretty twisted music. This for me is probably the most twisted. It just and unrelenting, unapologetic, unrelenting, nasty, obscene, sick. Love it. 5 stars.
Oh, 5 stars.
The album cover is great. You were right about that. A guy named Victor Safankin did that painting. It really is magnificent. It'd be cool to have it on vinyl, see it big. I also mentioned that Benny Calvert was the drummer on that. I think it may be the only album he worked on with them. I have no idea who he is, but he was good.
Right, good stuff. Number 5 then, Peter. What have you got at number 5?
Pandemonium. Wait, to be honest, I'd rather bow out and just listen to these two other guys chatter. Much more. I like to hear other people sort of raving and rending about Killing Joke. I just love Exorcism and White Out. I mean, they're just such amazing songs to lose yourself in at concerts. They're just like really otherworldly. I mean, the tales around that album are mad. I mean, what Exorcism was recorded in the King's Chamber in the one of the pyramids. I mean, that's just insane. And apparently all of the batteries kept bleeding out every time they started to record in there, and the engineers were, you know, having nightmares and stuff like this. I mean, how can you pull off something like that to get permission to record a song called Exorcism in there? I mean, it's just not
Quite impressive, I have to say.
I got, you know, like I have some personal memories of what that song means to me. Like my best friend Sally passed away a few years ago, and like the last time we saw Killing Joke together, I think it was in the Brixton Academy, and they played Exorcism, and he just burst out laughing. He just said, "What the fuck is this song? It's immense." You know, Geordie just generates so much power with so little effort. It just takes your breath away. I mean, what a brilliant album. Very much of its time, but some tracks that stand the test of time, and things like Exorcism and Labyrinth, things that are just like awesome creativity. So that's my like solid number 5.
Good stuff, Pete. Jeremy, what have you got at number 5?
At number 5, I have Pylon. Their last album. This was an album to me that it really condensed everything they were so good at. I felt like the songs were very carefully written before they went into the studio, unlike some of their albums where I feel like they're going with a little bit of a sketch and they solidify it. But there's something about the way the songs are structured that's so great. This is actually my number 7 album from 2015. So the fact, and I just remember I had a friend who was very sick at that time. I think it was in August that he was diagnosed, and he lived in New Jersey, and I was traipsing out there like 2 or 3 times a week to help him with stuff. And I would just be walking from the PATH train to his house with Pylon. And I just remember being on one of those walks, and I was like, this is unbelievable. Killing Joke, 35 years later, and they made one of the best records of the year with the original lineup. The original lineup was there in Absolute Descent as well, but I feel like they were all a little bit more comfortable together again on this one. And like Youth, you've seen them live, so you know that Youth is not like Geordie. Geordie is like this, you know, Youth is a goofball. And he's got the visor on and like a stupid, like the t-shirts he wears are the stupidest t-shirts. It's hilarious. And I feel like a little bit of that personality, he was able to get that in there. And it just made it better. You know, just some of the little things he does on the bass, just kind of like, who would think of that? He really is brilliant. And they all just sound fantastic. One of the things we can talk about with Killing Joke too is the way they structure songs, the way they can, I mean, nobody goes from a whisper to a scream better than Killing Joke. I think when you think about a song like New Jerusalem, this is what I wrote in my review in my top 25 that year. It starts with a wary dialogue between bass and guitar, which soon develops into a lethal strut, enhanced by some squirrely synth. Jazz enters calmly, almost reciting the lyrics, but the calm is brief. With almost frightening ease, they are instantly at full throttle. And that's always something to behold with this group. I mean, I'm super sad this is their last album, because also now it's every year since that, or at least 2 years, you know, 2017, I probably started thinking like, okay, guys, where's the next one? And they put out a single here, an EP there, lots of live albums. But if this is the one they're going out with, it is an honorable exit. It's a really great album. My number 5, I give it 5 stars.
Oh, we're all there now. We're all 5 stars. We don't need to bother mentioning it again. Good stuff. Excellent. Well said as well. Peter, what have you got next then?
Number 5,
Hmm.
I have got Fire Dances. Purely because I mean, musically, do I think it's above some of the others that I've put? You know, maybe not, but it's such a personal album to me. You know, it's where I came in. And it was the point that I fell in love. I do, you know, I would agree. Somebody said the production is a little bit sludgy, or you know, some of it sounds a bit thin. But doesn't matter to me. It just, you know, it's when you fall in love for the first time with a band, you know, and that's the one. I can't. It just, I just have to play it pretty regularly, you know, and every track on it, absolutely every track on it. Let's All Go is mind melding, you know, just yeah. Particularly any kind of remix of that, I also really enjoy. It is a strange song in some ways, in that it's they almost sound happy on it. Which is quite alarming, but you know, yeah, hard to separate. You know, hard to be critical about that album because it's so dear to my heart. And so, yeah, it's a five stars.
Yeah, right. Well, we're all there. We're all there. Well done, Pete. Peter, well done. Right, Pete, what have you got at number 4?
I'm really struggling. These I've got my 3 and 4 are interchangeable. For the purposes of this little conversation, it'll be what's this for? For most people, it's that the top Killing Joke album. I'm running out of like words and superlatives. I just think there's nothing else quite like them. I mean, the lyrics just they just gnaw at the bone as well. You know, I mean, they speak to so many different themes that in many ways are even more profoundly relevant now than they were like back in the day in 1981. You know, Butcher, things like this. I mean, God, you listen to that now, it makes me have some sense of unease. I mean, how can these like 20-year-olds be thinking that far ahead about what's going to come, you know? But these themes in most of the music being quite persistent, to be honest. But just brilliant stuff on there, and a lot of like interesting journeys in the songs. I mean, you've got some kind of like good dancey stuff with Follow the Leaders, and you've got some really heavy grind with Tension, but like my favorite track is Who Told You Now. Who Told You How. I just think that is just such a great way to end that album, you know, just no lyrics. I mean, I think they played that for the first time live ever, like on the comeback tour in 2008 or 2009, and it was just absolutely fantastic. That's me. Done.
Yeah, good stuff, Pete. Well, good stuff. Jeremy, what have you got at number 4?
Same. What's this for? I think I was also a work my way backwards person, because I came in at Fire Dances a little after it, when I really started getting into them. The first one I bought new was Nighttime, but this one, when I started working my way back, how many, you know, it continues on from the first album, but it also develops things. There's a sense of space and the use of the production that's just so much more sophisticated. And I like the drum sound is so incredible. But I really think when I think about it, I think about the space between the like lessons they were learning from the dub producers really gives it just this extraordinary sound. So many great songs. You mentioned Butcher, Follow the Leaders, Madness, Who Told You How is absolutely incredible. I love Exit is almost like a kiss off at the end, perfectly done. The Fall of Because, I mean, it's a brilliant album. There's not one misplaced note on it. I absolutely think it's genius. 5 stars.
Yep.
That's my number 4.
Excellent. Peter, what have you got at number 4?
I've got Pandemonium. Just, yeah, mind-blowing album for me. When I found out that, you know, a couple of the tracks were recorded in the Great Pyramid of Giza, that just blew my mind as well. I like the you know, the
Mine, I didn't know anything about it. I think it's a fabulous story. I love stuff like that.
Mate,
They
see the
filmed in there
document-
too, so there's video footage of that.
Is that right?
Yeah,
I'm
see,
gonna
see,
check it out.
see the documentary. It's quite bonkers. But yeah, you know, every track on it is absolutely sensational. I like the Arabic influence in it. I really love the album that Jazz did with Anne Dudley. It's one of my favorite all-time albums. So hearing that in there just really yeah, really love. And so, yeah, every track on it. Maybe the only one, it's easier to say the ones that I'm less keen on. Like every track on it is absolutely amazing. Maybe Whiteout is a little bit tedious, but so yeah, that's 5 stars for me.
Great stuff, man. You don't need to tell us the stars now. We've figured it out. We're all 5s there. Right, Peter,
Oh,
what have you
okay.
got? Peter, Pete, sorry, what have you got at number 3?
The first album. These days, I only really listen to the slow stuff on it, and I get more into that than anything else these days. I just love how relaxed and chill, but there's so much edge to that music. It cuts and just weird song structures. Like I just love Tomorrow's World and SO36. Just there's just nothing like that at the time. I mean, I got into them through this album, and like hearing The Wait and Requiem and Complications like blew my socks off. But I don't go back as much to those songs, but I go back to the slow stuff, especially on that Duendes sessions. I think the versions of those songs on there are absolutely fantastic. In many ways, they surpassed the production on the first album. I'm saving my fire for the top 2.
Right, okay. Jeremy, what have you got at number 3?
Number 3, I have the 2003 self-titled Killing Joke with one Dave Grohl. We had no idea how annoying that guy was going to become. But anyway, one of the things I love about this album is that this is from prime iPod era, you know, when I would get a CD, I would rip it to my iPod, and sometimes I wouldn't listen to it yet until I was like out about walking the streets. And I just remember being like, they sound like Killing Joke, but they also sound almost like a new band. They are firmly, once again, they are in the 2000s. They are doing new things while doing, and Grohl could definitely hold his own with them. He changed up his drumming style quite a bit, I think, to get involved. But the variety of textures and tones and power of Geordie's guitar, that it's unmistakably him, but it's also very different if you go back, you know, 2 decades. Wonderful stuff. And so to continue with the iPod theme, the other thing that, so my brother-in-law, he was always like, what should I be listening to? Tell me what to listen to. So we got into a rhythm where I would just go over to his house and I would just load up a bunch of stuff on his computer, and then he would put that on his iPod, and he'd just be walking around the streets. He wouldn't know what to get. So one day I got a voice message from him, and I checked my messages, and this is what he said: "The gods were angry the day they invented Killing Joke. This rocks." He was like blown away. Like the greatest voice memo I ever got. He was so psyched by it, and that just made me like connect to it even more. But I really think there's so many good songs on it. Death and Resurrection's already been mentioned. Asteroid, crazy good song. Dark Forces is such a weird song in so many ways. You know, it starts with this synth sound that almost sounds like vaguely classical, dun 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 dun, and it sounds like there's a timpani in the background. And then jazz comes in with this guttural whispery thing he started doing on that album. Actually, I think it might be the only album he did it on. You know, he's like, and then you know, and it's like there's war in the offing, and Geordie comes in, and he's like Geordie, sorry, he's like following the drum beat, you know, and then it gets into the pre-chorus, and he starts playing arpeggios on the guitar, and it rings out, and it's like sunshine, but it's dark as hell, you know? So it's like dark sunshine. How do you create that image in your mind? Like black sunshine, just mind-blowing stuff. And that's just one song on the album. There's so many other contrasting things. I hear what you're saying about Loose Cannon. It's kind of a basic song in some ways, but I still think it's a fantastic album. It's my number 3.
Right, well, I'm going to give you an iPod story for a second, because the guy who invented the iPod, Jonathan Ives, used to come into my record shop all the time.
Are you
And
serious?
yeah, and he used to come in with a girl called Ruth, and I used to get on really well with Ruth. And Ruth got me into Miles Davis. So if Ruth's ever out there watching, bless you, she was just fabulous. She was beautiful as well, from what I recall.
That's a
But
good
she
friend.
used to do Miles Davis tapes for us. So she used to put cassettes to us first. Miles Davis, just brilliant, absolutely great. But a long, long time ago. Peter, what have you got at number 3?
Number 3, I have got Absolute Descent. This for me is, again, it's a really incredibly personal album. When it came out, yeah, it was an important time in my life, and yeah, it just had a sound that I didn't really fully expect. You know, something like European Superstate, which is so poppy, and there's so much color and shade in this album. You know, it's just absolutely perfect. You know, for me, The Raven King makes me incredibly sad. Although Jazz did say, evidently, whilst doing my research, said it's not about Paul Raven. It's about Raven's anger and the things he felt passionately about, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, there's so much texture to this album. It really is very close to my heart. And yeah, number 3, Absolute Descent.
Great stuff. Right, well, down to the big 2 now. We've got Peter's big spiel. Come on then, Pete. What have we got at number 2?
So my number 2 is Revelations. I just think that first side just almost blows everything else out of the water, bar one album. Empire Song, We Have Joy, Pandies, Chop Chop, like Dregs at the end. I think Dregs, my God, that guitar sound and tone is probably the most violent guitar I've ever heard in my life. Without sounding like cheesy, like heavy metal kind of like stuff. It's just so discordant, so loud, so violent as well. I mean, there was something in Geordie that he draws very, very deep from to sort of have that kind of expression in the music. I love the production. I think it's definitely a Connie Plank album. And I just think there's some of the discordant riffs on there, like Empire Song and We Have Joy, Pandies. I mean, I love the lyrics to death as well. But just Jazz has an immense talent for timing the words perfectly in sync with different motions and waves in the songs and the tunes. You know, things like Take the Spear and Puncture the Breast. It just sounds. It won't have any meaning outside the context of that song, but the meaning just becomes so intense when it's underscored by the rest of the band. Phenomenal album. I like the stuff that other people disparage as well, like Chapter 3 and stuff like that. I just love it. Attack, just I think it's amazing. Just brilliant. I mean that's when I first like really got into them and was just totally obsessed. Like I just thought that was something else.
Good stuff,
Over to
Pete.
you.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Pete. Jeremy, what have you got at number 2 then?
Number 2, I've got Nighttime. This, as I said, was the first album I bought new. So I had gotten Fire Dances used like a little while after it came out, thought it was fantastic. And then this single appeared. This actually came out in '84, so a year before the album came out. I was like, wow, this is like kind of poppy, but it's really good. And the lyrics are just, you know, I push, I struggle, but in a way they're defining the era while being completely within the era as well. And what a monster riff, you know. We all know about Nirvana's feeling about that riff, although there's apparently a predecessor riff that
Is the
that
Damned?
Geordie was building on. What was that?
apparently the Damned also have a very similar riff on the
Yeah,
Strawberries
yeah.
album, don't they?
Some people say it was really the Damned, but anyway.
I hear it, but I think it's more Killing Jokes, obviously, you know.
So then I went and I bought this. I thought the single sounded great, so I bought the album, and I remember putting it on in my apartment on the campus of a college I was going to. So everybody had to hear it because the stereo was in the living room. Well, we had my own stereos in my room, but I put it on in the living room, and people were like, "Is that a drum machine?" I was like, "No, it's not a drum machine. It's electronic drums, but they're not being played by a machine. You know, like it swings. It's got a fucking great drum sound." And imagine hearing Love Like Blood for the first time. Do you know what I mean? Like that moment. It's the third song on the album. It's not like they cracked you over the head with it. And I just remember
One quick
being
thing about that song as well that I've noticed: if you play at the beginning of Love Like Blood and Smells Like Teen Spirit, it's the same drum beat. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. Honestly, have a listen to it.
is
There's a
so just that
there's a massive
guitar and the
similarity. I think is the phrase I'm going to use.
the organ is beautiful on there. I think the only other band I can think of that seemed to have a kind of control over what was going on production wise in the 80s, maybe Simple Minds when you think about New Gold Dream.
Great
And
album,
partly
that like.
because the rhythm section on that is kind of tough. And I think you need a tough rhythm section to go up against all the, reverb and stuff they were doing in the 80s. And I think that, there's a very tough rhythm sound on this. The songs are just, I mean, think side one, Nighttime, Darkness Before Dawn, Love Like Blood, Kings and Queens. That's side one. I mean, it's almost all you can do to summon up the energy to turn it over after you've just been flattened by that. It's just an incredible album. Of course, I had to buy all the big 12 inches. This is the cover of the, oh wait, that actually is the Love Like Blood 12 inch,
That's quite clever.
which
I like that.
has the Blue Feather version on the B side, which is just a mind blowing track. But yeah, Nighttime, it's, and I think it's the same what you were saying about Fire Dance. It's the first one I bought as soon as it came out, and I was just like filled up by it. It's majestic approach to music. It's a great record. I still do listen to it. So that's my number two.
Great stuff. Peter, what have you got number two?
I have got Killing Joke, first album. Yeah, I mean, just after Fire Dances, it was the one that I sort of fell in love with next. And it's just, I hadn't heard anything that was so strange and so willfully discordant. Because I think I was listening to this before I got to the birthday party, and I think there's they had a certain discordant violence carried across their early material in the same way that Killing Joke had. It's maybe why those like What's This For and Revelations and that aren't as dear to me, because the birthday party albums were. I know those albums more backwards than I do those, and they kind of scratch the same itch. But the first Killing Joke album, it just, the cover onwards is pure, utter perfection. Requiem is just one of the weirdest songs I've ever heard in my life, and is one of my all-time favorite songs. War Dance really just, that just sets out, that sums them up, I think, more than any other song. It sums up their first few years of existence more than any other song. It lays out the stall. It's like, this is who we are, this is what we're about, this is what you're getting, this is it. So yeah, it's just, I mean, it's so incredible. They made something so unique, so mind-blowing. Yeah, number two, Killing Joke, first Killing Joke.
Yeah, it's a very unique album, isn't it? Very, nothing sounded like that at the time, did it? Yeah, interesting. So, Pete, number one then.
My number one is Extremities. Every time I listen to this, it's like the first time I've listened to it. It's like I've never listened to it before. It's in many ways it's the most symphonically structured Killing Joke album because the songs are quite long, and many of them take really sort of different twists and turns. Like there's huge changes of pace. I don't think Geordie's ever sounded finer than on that album. Intravenous, just I don't know, the chord structures on that. The drumming is absolutely phenomenally intense. Slipstream, I think, is just the best guitar introduction you'll ever hear by anybody. And I just love this album so much. It's so violent. It's so dark. It's full of aggression and frustration by the band. I just think nothing they've done will equal that ever. It just, I mean, I struggle with the words to express how it feels. It's just a feeling with Killing Joke more than anything else. It just centers you as a human being and just like symbolizes like the struggle of life. You know, it's just that album is just about trying to assert agency against the machine, and some of the writing on it, some of Jazz's lyrics and Beautiful Dead and things like that are just beautiful, like really savage but beautiful. But my God, the Geordie's on Fire. It's just a crazy album. For me, it's like 10,000 like points, not 5. It's just insane. I think the most beautiful piece of music on that album is in the middle of Extremities, where it just drops, and it goes from this like sort of really thrashy, really violent, jerky song into this beautiful sort of dreamscape of like he's just fiddling on with the guitar, creating this beautiful underwater type tones. It's bloody surreal, like how it just drifts from this absolute intensity to this just like almost like a Zen sort of like feeling, and then it's back to like punches in the kidneys, you know. But Extremities sorry, Intravenous is my all-time favorite song. I just think it's just every time I hear that, like I know when I need to go and listen to them, I will go put that on. You know? It's like a karma for me, even though it shouldn't be, because it's such a violent and angry song about what we're doing. So it's I just think it's just too good. I think Geordie, to be honest, I mean, they were never really commercially successful, and he gets a lot of lip service, respect, and stuff like that as being innovative and well respected. But he just had the juice that nobody else had, and he just creates sounds that nobody else created. Nobody comes close. I mean, if you look at the bands that have tried to emulate them, like Ministry, what they need 3 guitarists to sound a little bit like Geordie. It's just crap, you know. Extremities is just a monster, Sid. Like I really recommend you listen to it.
I look forward to it. As I say, I only knew a few albums, so I was unable to speak. So I'm really looking forward to it.
There's no pop in it at all. There's no there's no sort of hooks in terms of tunes. It's just sheer cacophony of oral violence. It's just superb. Man, the drum.
I was going to make an oral violence gag, but I thought I better not. Go on.
Yeah. Hat tip to Martin Atkins as well. I mean, everyone loves Big Paul.
Exactly.
Martin Atkins, what a frigging drummer. Honestly, his arms must have fell off. You listen to the crescendos in Intravenous. My God, how's that guy got arms left after that? It's just phenomenal. It's just so intense. Anyway, that's my piece. I'm done.
Well done, Pete. Even though he's given the game away about what's his number 1 song's going to be on the next show, but that's another story. Go on, Jeremy. What have you got?
Well, there's only one left, and it almost seems unfair for a band with such a titanic discography to pick their number one album as my number one album, their first album, Killing Joke. But there's something universal about it. I think people who don't really like Killing Joke, they like this album. People who love Killing Joke love this album. It's just an incredible record. I did a 40th anniversary appreciation for it in the 40th anniversary year. And one of the things I said at the end, I called it an album of molecular intensity that is continually fissioned into contemporary relevance ever since it emerged. If we can't have peace and love, it's one of the themes of my article, is that they were talking about nuclear war. There was a threat of nuclear war in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
But probably forgotten about. There was a terrifying thing going on. Not only nuclear war, but also nuclear power plants blowing up down the street. It's definitely a thing that seemed to be happening with regularity. And when you think about their approach versus the aging hippies who did the no nukes concert, where you had David Crosby, and they were coming out with these tired songs. So, the hippie dream was over. We needed to take this on with aggression.
I mean, No Nukes, the concert was literally 1 year before that album, wasn't it? Came out in 79, the No Nukes gig.
And I think their approach was also, well, if that's going to happen, we better learn to live in that reality and live in that world. And that's what they create here. When you look at the lyrics to Complications, I compare it to, this could be a pitch for a dystopian series on Netflix. He says here, see the sun turn green from my penthouse window. I mean, it's atmospheric. But how many words is that? It's 12 words. It's different now because you got no shelter. So it switches into some other reality. Alienation by experimentation, and then enjoy yourself. This is the new age. So rather than cowering, we're going to take to the streets and we're going to make way for ourselves in this brave new world of nuclear disaster. I mean, nobody else took that approach. I just think it's a brilliant album. I also love, when I was doing the article, I was like looking at interviews and reading up, trying to find, primary source material. And at one point, Paul Ferguson said in an interview, they were 4 people with different destinations, but all going up the same set of stairs, the same flight of stairs. I love that description. And that's what I'm talking about kind of with Pylon, how they have all these very distinct personalities, but somehow they manage to move in the same direction. And that's when they're at their best. And there's just not a bad song on here. I also like the connection to Eno because they were on Eno's label. And I think there's very few other bands that were able to incorporate electronics into a guitar and rhythmic based sound the way they did. Even there's hints of ambient sound on this, white noise, and all those textures and things. I mean, I remember Jazz when the first time I saw him live in 85 or 86, he just had this little keyboard, and it's just, fantastic sounds he's making out of it. Later on, they had a separate keyboard player give Jazz a little more freedom at the front of the stage, but he really knew what he was doing, I think, with synths, and he brought that classical training to it that he had. As a debut album, it's so fully formed. It's just incredible. This would be a second or third album for most bands, but they had it. And it's just never going to sound old. It's just a perfect record. Killing Joke by Killing Joke.
Yeah, great stuff, Jeremy. Great stuff. Last but not least, Peter, come on then.
Well, after that, I'm kind of wishing I'd switched from number 2 and number 1 around. But my number 1 is a very personal choice. For me, it's 2012. That album is extremely personal to me. That was a hang on, I'm just want to load it on here for the track list. Where am I? There I am. That was a mental time in my life, and they made the soundtrack to it, really. The opening with Pole Shift, just the opening boom, just from there on out, fantastic.
And it's a 9-minute song and it doesn't let up.
I know. It's just.
Nobody else does.
And then FEMA camp, which I always thought, you know, like burning in the furnace of a FEMA camp. You know, it's just, yeah, like Jazz on his, you know, crazy conspiracy theories or what have you. Like, it's just, yeah, interesting. Kind of batshit crazy. But then, you know, it's Corporate Elect, just absolute belter of a tune. And lyrically, really, yeah, you know, well, look, they at this point, you know, they've been going, what, 30 odd years, and as Jeremy said before, you know, to make this and Absolute Descent and Pylon, you know, this late into their career, I can't either think of any other band that has pulled this, has managed to do that, make their such fine work so late in their career, and to still sound so new, relevant, etc. You know, at the best, you usually expect a band to be kind of treading the same water, or become a bit of a pastiche. You know, maybe like those of us that love them would love them, etc., etc. But this isn't. This is new. This is fresh. And to do that, you know, it just shows the strength of musicianship, and also the strength of character of these people there. They just didn't really, you know, obviously not really caring about earning $1 for the retirement, you know. You know, it wasn't, you know, this is from the heart, with so uncontrived, so unpretentious, you know, just brave, incredibly brave. And then also the one other track that I want to mention is In Cythera, which is such a beautiful song and such a kind of heartbreak track. I know that he had Jazz was living in Cythera by then. I believe he owned a property out there. Yeah, that's such a little moment of quiet, and just really, well, not quiet, but you know, it's just such a beautiful track in the middle of it. And you know, yeah, everything about that album is perfect for me. So yeah, 2012.
A word for Mike Coles, who, when you think he was their art director for so many years, and the idea that, you know, he did that first album, I believe, I know, and then he's doing this, which looks completely different but fits the times and the tone of the album perfectly. And that guy is a visual genius.
They gathered people around them that were as innovative and, you know, out there as them. I mean, look, you know, we've all come in kind of pretty much with different loves of different parts of, you know, I love the whole canon, apart from Outside the Gate. You know, really, I just love all of it. But we've all come in with our own personal loves as well, you know. And that's a credit to them, really. You know, like, put any Killing Joke on other than Outside the Gate and I'm going to be happy.
It's been interesting because from an outsider's perspective, there's normally the album, isn't there, or the couple of albums where everyone's going to have roughly the same sort of albums. And yeah, the top, like when we did the Beatles, we all sort of knew what the top three were roughly going to be. I didn't have and it's interesting to not really go on that sort of route on this. So this is cool. This is good. Right, well, folks, we're going to stop there. So send in your lists. Let us know what you think. And until the next time when we do the top 10 songs, which sounds like it's going to be fun, I think is the phrase I'm going to use. Until then, send in the lists, look after yourself, and remember to subscribe to the channel, folks. Subscribe. Okay, till then, take care. Goodbye.
All right.